Hi there folks, my name's Novoid24 and welcome to another little review of an FSX and prepared product. So today we're going to be having a look at a long overdue review for the Just Flight Piper PA28 161 Piper Cherokee Warrior 2. Oh, what a mouthful that was. So we're going to start by saying thank you very much to the guys over at Just Flight for providing me with the review copy of this one. I really wanted to sort of get into this one because I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys, I wanted to give a full test before I sort of gave the review, and I really wanted to cover this one off in a bit of detail. There's been a lot of things happening for me in the real world, but you probably don't need to be worried about that and you're more interested in review. So I'm going to stop waffling about things that are not associated with flight simulation and get on with the review. So we're going to get started as we usually do here. We're going to go through, we're going to have a look at the externals, we're going to have a look at some of the internals, and we're going to go for a quick little test flight. Now we're going to be doing our review today in Lockheed Martin's Prepared. We are doing this in Prepared version 3. Now this is an interesting little title. So this is the first one, and I'll be honest, I'm going to get my main sort of bugbear out of the way now. So I sort of have a fairly fundamental disagreement with the fact that this is sold as a prepared version and as a FSX version. I have a pretty fundamentally I have a pretty fundamental issue with that. I would be a little bit more forgiving if there was a prepared version 4 and then an FSX and prepared version sort of 1 through 3 version. I'd be a bit more forgiving of that. But yeah, the fact that it is actually sort of cut between the FSX prepared market is just, yeah, I have an issue with that. I fundamentally do. So I just wanted to get this one out of the way now. So we, of course, as I said, we are reviewing the prepared version now. The prepared version is fully compatible with prepared version 1 through version 4, including all the 64-bit and dynamic lighting fun stuff that version 4 it does bring to the table. The FSX version is compatible with FSX Boxed and FSX Steam. So now that we've got the version differences out of the way, fundamentally though, there is no difference between how the aircraft flies and the operation of the internals. The only real difference that you have is the actual lighting sort of is a little bit handled differently in prepared version 4. So really, otherwise, there's not a fundamental great deal of difference, and that again stems into sort of why I do sort of have issues with the way actually and it's not just Flight specifically. There are other companies doing this as well, but that's, as I said, my sort of bugbear there. Anyway, alright, so now that I've got that little thing out of the way, we're going to be having a look at the actual aircraft. So you can see that the model is actually sort of very highly detailed. Now, at the moment, I want to draw attention to a couple of things. So the first one is, of course, the tie downs and the chocks. So the great thing about this is that they're not, and although they are an animation, they're an auto sort of specific animation. So in this particular scenario, we've got engine shutdown, cold and dark, and we've got the parking brake engaged. So that will automatically give you the actual tie down. Straps will be connected, as well as the chocks will be put in place. So I like the fact that it is actually sort of situational specific. So you don't have to worry about sort of you don't have to sort of do a separate window and stuff like that, which actually minimizes the amount of sort of stuffing around that you have to do, especially if you want to sort of do up some nice screenshots and sort of scenario screen shots, and again, if you just want to see your aircraft sitting as it would be in the real world. So there you go. Now, just so, as a complete side, now you do get a whole range of textures with this one. I do want to leave this because I want to do a bit of a side note on this one. Interesting random history. So yeah, you get, I think it's 10 liveries from various versions of this aircraft from various countries around the world. Now this is the Australian one. Now, interesting story with this actual livery. I had actually been looking at using this livery to repaint another aircraft, something similar, before this actual version came out. Now, you may look at it and you may sort of go, that colour scheme seems a little familiar. So the colour scheme is what's known as a Fantacan colour scheme. So it was a colour scheme that was used extensively by the Royal Australian Air Force, and whose roundel adorns the side of this aircraft for test aircraft and for training aircraft for a really long time. It's only in the last few years that it actually technically the PC9s, which are due to be retired in the next sort of year or so, some of them still wear this color scheme. So it's considered an active scheme. Now, interesting story though. Although the RAAF did fly and operate 3 of this aircraft, of the Warrior 2s, this was never one of them. This was a privately owned aircraft, so as you can tell by the civilian registration, VH Bravo Victor Mike. But it was just painted up to look like the Royal Australian Air Force, so it was never associated with the RAAF. It was never officially sanctioned by the RAAF. As far as anybody knows, it was never used on RAAF business. It just happens to have actually been painted up to resemble it, as resemble an RAAF aircraft. It was actually really interesting. As I said, I'd actually done research on this aircraft and this livery before I actually got my hands on this review copy, so it was kind of cool to actually see it had actually been modelled and actually the texture had been done. Anyway, so completely unrelated to the review, but yeah, just a kind of neat little sort of trivia about one of the actual sort of repaints and deliveries that's available in this. Anyway, so the aircraft itself, as I said, beautifully, highly detailed model. There's, if for rivet counters out there, the rivets are actually sort of done really well as well. The textures are done quite nicely, a very nice sort of subtle shine to it. So really sort of emulating how it actually looks and working very well with the best of the ESP SDKs. The reflections are handled quite nicely as well. Very subtle but very effective as well. And just as I said, overall the actual model is done really well and the textures are done quite nicely as well. So definitely can't complain to this one. Interestingly enough, this is done by the Just Flight internal team as well. So it's one of their range, and it's actually, as I think in a lot of ways these guys have really grown and actually sort of come a long way as their internal development, which has always been good, which is always good to see. And this one is definitely showing the fruits of their labour. Alrighty, so that's been there having a look at the external models. Let's jump into the office and let's have a look at some of the insides, and then before we take it up for a quick flight. Alrighty, so here we are in the office of the beautiful Just Flight Piper Warrior PA-28. So it is, as I said, like I really liking the attention to detail and just some of the, like especially graphically the way it's done, sort of to get us started, but also the fact of the way it's modelled. Now, we're going to get started, so we'll sort of have a wander through the cockpit here. Then we're going to be going through we'll go through our startup process and all the rest of it. So the first thing that really struck my mind here is that this is an older aircraft. Let's be honest here. I mean, they're still very popular, very popular as training aircraft, but it is a very popular aircraft. It's also an older aircraft, so you don't find there's not a lot of glass cockpits sort of stuff around here. This is all basic instrument stuff here. So, and I really like the fact that they've actually sort of modelled it and got the age and sort of like the wear and tear of the actual instrumentation has been modelled, as well as the old classic instruments as well. So I really like this sort of legacy, so not legacy, but sort of that used and loved feel about it, because that's what really, at the end of the day, I mean, I know sort of a lot of people go for they go for the tube liners and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, everybody starts in an aircraft just like this, with lots and lots of hours on it, lots of love, lots of wear and tear on the aircraft. So that's why I think these aircraft is really important to actually have them modelled and be part of our simulation world. So there you go. Alright, so as I said, we've got the basic 6 here, and then we've got some various radio navigation systems as well. Now, as just going through here, so let me just camera angles have just gone a little bit crazy for 1 second. There we go, that's better. So we've got the basic 6 there. Then underneath we've got the basic autopilot. Now, of course, as I said, this is an older aircraft, so the autopilot is fairly basic with this one. So there is no, so the altitude control's not really there. It's sort of basically heading navigation, like it's very basic sort of stuff here. Now you do have a little bit of a Nav1 GPS, so if you do want to follow a GPS flight plan that you've saved in, you can, using this little toggle switch here. Otherwise, we've got our center start things that we're used to seeing in these kind of aircraft. That's all the key. Fuel selector. Now, this is the important thing, is that one of the great things about the guys Just Flight is they've modelled the fact that there is no crossfeed in this aircraft. You have a left tank and you have a right tank, and you actually have to, it's part of the operating manual where you actually have to change the fuel source in mid-flight while you're actually sort of going along to make sure you maintain your weight and balance. So again, it's these little things that This team are really modeling really well, and the kind of details of and attention to detail that I think are really speaking to me as a great quality add-on for this one. Alright, continuing on, we've got through here, as I said, we've got Avionics here. So with the Avionics, as I said, they're fairly dated, but again, they've been modeled beautifully. But they're very basic Avionics. This is stuff that, you know, is not your glass cockpit stuff, so nothing you're going to see in a you know flight management computers or anything sort of like that. Like, these are basic instrumentations here. No sort of moving map display on your GPS. Your Garmin GPS 100 is like one of the first generations of the aviation Garmins. So this is like really basic text only stuff here. So really cool little sort of like legacy of, like, you know, of that early days of GPS navigation and sort of, you know, aviation from a bygone era, but it's something that I'm really enjoying. So yeah, I just love this kind of flying. It's just not quite seat of your pants kind of flying, but again, that's sort of really cool, good stuff for that one. Alright, so we've got with that one here, so what we've got to do is we've got, as I said, a beautifully modeled, beautifully detailed interior here as well, including sort of like the couple of rear seats at the back there. Now, let's go through a couple of things that you do also get here. So I'm going to bring up the menu along the top here. Now, you do get the little sort of add-ons up here as well. Now, you do get this pop-out menu for the PA28. And I was going to quickly show you, before I show you this one, I was going to show you this one here. So we've got the little arrow here. Now, this is a common thing with Just Flight aircraft, where you can do a couple of quick little sort of touches here. So this is the toggle power. So basically, you can toggle power, toggle it straight to cold and dark, which is what we're sitting in at the moment. You can also do so you can just sort of go switch between cold and dark and just ready to fly. You've also got the checklist here. Now, funny enough, there's actually two sets of checklists here. Now, this is something where I actually have a bit of an oddity with this particular add-on here. So the checklists are very comprehensive. As I alluded to before, you've got two different types of checklists in here. So this is the main set of checklists, and this gives you all the checklists that you'll pretty much cover for the real aircraft. So you've got a pre-flight checklist here, you've got a before start checklist, engine start, taxiing, ground checks, before takeoff, climb, cruise, descent, everything including emergencies and engine failure procedures are all included here as well. So a great set of checklists here, really good for those who are wanting to go through and add a bit more experience to that one. However, what's interesting about this, or unusual perhaps, or something that I'm not used to, is the fact that these checklists are not they're interactive, but they're not automatic. So, for example, if we're going to do the before start checklist here, I can mark that. I can go, yes, my brakes are currently set, because they are. I can mark that and it'll go green, but it won't actually check it off for me automatically. Now, I've done some previous sort of review of some of the work from the Just Flight in-house team here, which is where this particular warrior has been developed by. And they had the same set of checklists, but it was automatic. It would actually detect it and actually sort of tick it off green as you went through. So interesting that it doesn't do that in this one. So it's so. And I'm in two minds of this one, because, you know, in the real world, the checklist doesn't automatically mark itself when you sort of do something. So, in that way, it replicates reality. But it's kind of like, maybe that'd be nice if it actually did that as well. So there you go. Yeah, then that's kind of that one. The other checklist is this one here, which is the interactive one. Now, this one is the one that will actually go green automatically as you actually get to certain things, and this is the one that we'll use shortly when we're actually getting ourselves underway. But yeah, this one. So they offer sort of both ones, where you will have both the interactive and the manual sort of checklist. So interesting way of doing it. I kind of like originally I was a bit off-put by it, but the more I've sort of flown and test flown this, I'm actually sort of a bit more comfortable with it, and actually like the fact is, and the reason for that is because, as I was alluding to earlier, is that this aircraft is a great bridging aircraft for those wanting to get more out of the simulation experience. There's a lot of things modeled here, a lot of detail done here, and you actually have to sort of pay attention to your aircraft, because a lot of things subtle things are modeled in it. And so for those wanting to bridge the gap between some of the default aircraft, and then wanting to take their simi experience to the next level, and wanting to sort of start following more checklists, following more realistic procedures, or emulating some of those things, this is a great aircraft to sort of do that stepping stone towards. As well as that, it gives them, but it still gives you the option of being a little bit more casual about it if you want to be casual pilot about it as well. So that's why this one appeals to a wide range of pilots. So there you go. Anyway, all right, I've enough of that bit of walling. Now, as I said, we'll continue our sort of our chatting through here, and we'll go through this, and we'll come back to our start shortly. So the other thing is we've got here, so we've got flight computers. This is just a basic flight computer. It essentially simulates a sort of notepad and paper. You've got to do some calculations. Now, this other part here, I'm not going to do this here because this always goes horribly wrong when I do it. This is the toggle Towbar. Essentially, this is the slew function of the sim as a Towbar. It sort of puts an animation of a Towbar at the front, and then you can sort of slew the aircraft around. I've never been able to master it or figure out why the hell it's actually in here. So if somebody can explain to me why it's even in here, that would be great. Basically, it's just the slew function, just as a tool. But I just taxi the aircraft, or choose your start location from the scenario setup. Anyway, so yes, there you go. That's that one. All right. It does have various shift pop-ups as well for the menus for a lot of the major instrumentation. So you do have some of the instrumentation go through here. You can get access to the checklist flight computer straight away. That's pretty much it. The GPS is hidden under the shift 1, so although it's not modeled in the cockpit, you do have move map display cheating GPS if you would like to have it. Alright, okay, now, as I was saying before, this is up here, we do have some other add-ons here as well, so this will include your add-ons thing at the top here. Now, we'll give you some of the similar options that we saw just before up there, so you can set your panel state to being cold and dark or ready for takeoff. You also, if you don't want to do some of the things as well, you can also toggle the auto fuel selector. So if you don't want to do, as I was talking about before, we actually having to change the fuel mid-flight, we can actually set it to automatically do it for you. You can also toggle the fact that it'll make sure that you don't overstress the engine. Because again, like similar to A2A, it is actually, a lot of these things are models, so it will actually save panel states when you shut the aircraft down and things like that. Whatever you can do. And you also can enable and disable that if you don't want it to do that. Panel selector, that's a little white arrow at the top there. Refill menu. Now, the refill menu is kind of cool. So think of this like, for those who might have experienced A2A or seen some of the A2A aircraft, this is where you see them sort of going into the hangar thing, where you sort of check the oil and fuel quantity and things like that in the battery. This is where you can refill that. You can check the quantities, because it does model the oil fuel burn very, very accurately as well. So, and the use of the battery. So again, this is what I like about this aircraft. This aircraft, you can disable all these features as well. And I like it because of the fact that it gives you that best of both worlds. It gives you that for those who want to increase their realism, but at the same time still accessible enough for those who want to just jump in and fly. So it's a nice, really nice balance for this one. So as I said before, you can sort of check the oil quantities that we can see, and it comes up here. It comes up in a little. Oh, I should probably move that. Let me just do that again, because I just pushed that out of the way before. There we go. Let me just bring it down here, make it a bit easier to see. There we go. So you can check your oil quantity. Comes up in the little green box as well. I keep mine tucked away out of the winds out of the screen. Refill the oil, fuel, things like that as well. Recharge the battery if it needs this as well. And there you go. That's pretty much it. Alright, I'm going to push that back up out of the way. There we go. Cool. Awesome. Alrighty. As I said, I just really enjoy the fact that there's a lot of attention to detail going along here. They've got the interactive, both interactive and sort of manual checklists integrated as well, depending on how you want to fly the aircraft, and a lot of sort of both, and a lot of catering for pilots of all skill levels. Because again, as I was sort of alluding to before, this is the kind of aircraft that a lot of pilots train in when they're first sort of getting on board and getting their wings. This is the kind of aircraft they're going to be flying in. So something that's a bit older, a bit more pilot friendly, I'm going to say, and the fact that they are they've always got a lot of hours on them. So yeah, there you go. All right. Without any further ado, I think we've had enough of me waffling on. We should get into to do some flying here. So I'm going to hide that away. Now we're going to shut our door here. Oop. Click that one too many times. Alright, then we're going to lock and latch the door, And as I said, I like the fact that it actually models all of the latch, like both latches have to be done as well. Alright, now let's bring up our engine checklists. So we'll do that. We'll bring the interactive one up. Get that one out of the way. Alright, okay, so I'm going to let's resize this a bit, shall we? Put that up in the corner there. Okay. Alright, so we've got our brakes are set, carburetor heat is off. Fuel selector to the left for the tank, done. Okay, so open up the throttle, mixture full rich. Okay, alternator switch on, battery master on, fuel pump on. Mixture rich. Magnetos. Starter on. Magneto both. Oil pressure okay. RPM okay. There we are. Checklist is green. So yeah, I like the fact that it's got the interactive checklist as well as it does have the manual checklist for those who want to do this a bit more real. So it's as I said, it's a really good training tool for those who are wanting to increase their simming experience. So this is great. And I love the purring sound the engine makes. It just really does. All right, we're going to close that there. We're going to finish powering up all the avionics. We're going to power up a few of the lights and things as well. Fuel tank on the left. Okay, anti-collision lights, pitot heats on, nav lights on, and just I don't know if you noticed there, but you can actually see the actual energy usage, like the battery usage, actually jumping when you're turning the lights on and off. Like that's the kind of detail that's in here, and it's actually articulated in things like that as well, which is really impressive to see. All right, avionics need to be on. Gamma GPS 100 on. Okay. All our avionics on. Now we're going to be now we're starting our flight here today. So today we are here at Redcliffe, so Yankee Romeo Echo Delta, which is a freeware airport from Orbx. So we're going to be taking off here, and then we're going to be heading north. It's actually one of my local airfields, this one. We're going to be heading north from here. We're going to be heading up to Caloundra. So it's got a really cool little air museum. It's a nice little short little hop. Alright, so we've got ourselves set up here. We are good to go. Now I'm going to preset my heading bug because we are going to be heading around about 350 heading, I'm pretty sure. I think that's about right. We're going to be taking off. We're going to be departing here. We're heading northwest, and we're going to be heading up towards. So we're going to have a look at that. This gives us a chance to look at a couple of other features about the aircraft once we're in the air. We're going to see what she's like on the takeoff roll. Okay. So the next step is we're going to release the brakes. We're going to taxi down to the end of the field. Now, I don't know if I mentioned before, but yeah, we are using having advantage of we're of course in Lockheed Martin's prepared version 3 today, and we are the weather, horrible weather, which is unusual for sunny Queensland. This weather is brought to us by Active Sky Next today, of course. Pretty much the simulator standard, pretty much for all of these things today. Now, it does have a tendency, she does pull a little bit, just like the real aircraft does, so you do need to watch her on the takeoff roll and on the taxi. The engine will give you that little bit of pull and that torque differential. Again, it's the little things like this that I really do enjoy in the modelling and the detail that the team at Just Flight. And as I alluded to before, like I have reviewed a product from the internal Just Flight development team previously. And I'm not going to lie, it was the Tornado, and it was pretty horrific when it first came out. But this release really shows how far they've come as a development team, because they really have. They're paying a lot more attention to detail now. Their philosophy's got a lot more sort of back to basics, and definitely very much keeping things sort of synced up, and actually sort of taking notice of what the community wants, as well as to being able to deliver a better quality product. And it's definitely an amazing quality product here. And it looks like we are going to have a bit of a queue from Takeoff from our AI traffic, because I do know there is a 172 in the pattern doing touch and goes, and looks like we've got somebody else waiting for departure here at Redcliffe as well. Ground handling just needs a little touch of rudder a little bit every now and just nose wheel steering every now and again, just to make sure she stays on the center line, because it's modelling it very, very nice with the torque and the pull. I'm going to bet that is a missed approach from our AI friend up there. The joys of sort of working with AI traffic when recording review videos are not something I'd had in my previous tests of this video. There you go. Anyway. Looks like we'll have to wait till the AI traffic departs. Alrighty, so finally got our clearance to land. Everybody's clear of the pattern for the moment, so we're going to tuck out onto the runway. We've got our 1 notch of flaps in for departure. Now, one thing I found is you can be quite squirrely on the takeoff roll. It's one thing I have found. Positive right. She doesn't require a big takeoff roll, that's for sure. There's the airspace. We'll head round to the left. Climbing up into the cloud. Pretty congested AI airspace around here. Now we are going to engage our basic autopilot. As I said, the autopilot's fairly basic with this one. I haven't done programmed GPS plan, so it's just going to be the basic autopilot of the aircraft, which of course is the heading hold. The heading hold in here, it'll just adjust the thing, and then the altitude, of course, just done with the trim. I'm just going to change that comm channel for now. We don't get interrupted by any more AI talking. So yeah, the autopilot in the aircraft was very, very basic, and it again is the features of it are modeled just like that, very basically here as well, with the fact that it is just a basic heading hold or nav hold. It doesn't actually sort of have the actual altitude. If you want to do that, that's all done manually with trim. So all just done with the trim wheel, and actually sort of just trimming and pitching for that one. Now we're going to get up to our cruise sort of above some of these clouds. We're heading up to, as I said, Caloundra. But again, I'm really loving the sensation of the aircraft. You get the vibration of the aircraft, you get the audios through here as well. Like everything just really sounds quite, you know, exactly as it should. Everything looks and feels and just sort of like purrs the way it should. So I think that there's been done a lot of really good modelling on here. She is a bit squirrely, as you saw on the takeoff roll with the power application, and that's just a byproduct of the aircraft and the engine that's in this particular Warrior. And it is a commonly known thing. So again, it's nice to see they've actually modelled those features really well as well, and actually sort of taken that time to actually investigate and spend the time with those. Again, the basic instrumentation, although it is basic, is still very functional. Again, a great way to actually, for pilots who want to learn to actually sort of, you know, bridge their and increase their actual sort of knowledge. And again, as I said before, like aircraft like this is where pilots genuinely actually start. So, you know, you don't start flying a tube liner, you start flying an aircraft like this. Now, one thing I did want to show as well, I was going to bring up the menu of we did before. So there's a little thing here, it's toggling the wheel fairings. I'm just going to jump outside the aircraft for a second. So yeah, one of the the factory options of the actual Warrior was actually to be able to have wheel fairings on because it has fixed undercarriage. You can actually choose to have wheel fairings or not. Now, in the real aircraft, it does actually, having the wheel fairings will actually give you about a 10 knot increase in your cruise speed. Though in the simulator version that is not simulated, so because that would require a different flight model. So you don't get the bonus cruise speed if you were hoping for that. Instead, though, you just get these beautifully elegant wheel spats covering along the wheel fairings on your wheels, so looking quite nice. But again, this gives us a chance to actually have a look at the sort of outside of the aircraft and seeing again that beautiful modelling and attention to detail that we see that we sort of started seeing on the ground as well, including even something as simple as detailed as actually putting things like the dirt spatters that are coming off the wheels, sort of like where the wheels come in and the oil comes out of the aircraft and the fuel base. So there's a lot of thought, a lot of detail goes into the actual texture work here of this aircraft, and looking really good for that. I'm really pleased the guys did that, so looking amazing. All right, we're gonna break the video here as I'm sort of heading out to Caloundra. We're going to rejoin the video once I'm on approach into Caloundra, and I'll be land, taxi in, and give my final thoughts on the aircraft. As we commence our descent here into Caloundra, we're going to have some favourable winds for our lander here. The one thing that in terms of the flight model, the aircraft is really well modelled for me. I think it describes the behaviour. I mean, it's a very docile aircraft. Although I'm not doing it here in the video, I did do the power on, power off stalls, and it pretty much followed exactly what I was expecting, and reading from various flight manuals and that kind of thing as well. So it was pretty much exactly as expected. Unfortunately, however, the only part of the flight model that I think I would have to fault, it possibly could be me, I'm not sure, but I'm following all the flight manuals, because you do get a copy of the flight manual for the aircraft as well. It was actually that I just can't quite get the speeds I'm supposed to be able to expect out of the cruise. I find that it's just a little bit shy of where it should be. It should be able to cruise sort of, you know, the high 120s. It should be able to sort of cruise around that, but it really struggles to get above around about the 100 knot mark in the cruise configuration, which is, as I say, it's not a huge thing, but it is something that I did notice. And although it's not a huge thing, but it's the only sort of fault I can really sort of say on the actual in terms of the flight model. Otherwise, she pulls the right way that I expect. She does require the right amount of rudder trim on takeoff. It's sort of rudder input for takeoff. So everything else seems to be fairly close to what the flight manuals say and what I read about, you know, pilots' impressions of the aircraft. I just find that, yeah, the part that's not quite right was just the cruise. I just can't quite get the amount of power I'm expecting out of the cruise. But anyway. So yeah, so we're descending now, heading towards Caloundra, a beautiful little seaside town just sort of north of Brisbane. We're going to be descending into there. We're going to come in and land. It's a beautiful airport actually. It's got a great little air museum just in the town, by the town as well. So it's on the airfield. A lot of childhood memories growing up and visiting the aircraft there. There's Seavixen there, there's Gannet there. There's a lot of cool stuff there. Anyway. Alright, let's get on with the descent. Saying she is a very docile aircraft, which is why she's so popular as a GA aircraft and as a pilot training sort of platform, because she is so docile, and this gentle, smooth approach very much sort of can showcase that as well. Crosswind coming through. I'd say there's no click here. It's a grass taxiway here at this airstrip, so we'll taxi along the side of the airfield here. AI comes in for its landing as well. So we'll taxi on down to parking, and I'll give my final thoughts there as we clean up the aircraft as we're taxiing. Drop back onto the crosswind runway for our final taxi back. Get a shot of the Orbx grass there. Funny enough, as a side story, this is actually one of the first pieces of payware scenery. I think this is the first piece of payware scenery I ever purchased. Actually, was this airport, because it is one close to home for me. As I said, a lot of memories growing up and going to the Air Museum, which is modelled here in the scenery. Love the detail that Orbx put into their airports. That really is good. Taxi up to the stand here. Alright, well that's quite enough of that. Alright, let's lock the aircraft down. Parking brake on. Let's go through our shutdown checklist. So we've got our flaps retracted, check. Fuel pump off. Avionics off. Check. Electrical switches off. Heater, heat, collision, landing lights off. Throttle closed. Mixture idle cut off. Check. Magnetos off. Alternator off. And battery off. And all shut down. Excellent. We can close that one now. Now we can unlatch the door. There we go. Alrighty. Let's jump outside and let's have our final thoughts, shall we? Alrighty, so my final thoughts about the Just Flight Piper Warrior for Prepared and FSX. Okay, I think that this is an absolutely brilliantly detailed model. I think that the team there at Just Flight, the internal team, their development team, this really shows the progress that they've made. They've come forward in leaps and bounds in their quality of their work. And this really showcases that. What I love about this aircraft is the fact that it does offer a lot to a wide variety of pilots. So there are those that sort of say some things are too complex, some things are too simple. This one walks a really nice balance between that, giving those who want something very close to realism, giving them a lot of options, and while at the same time giving those who are just learning and want something a bit easier to access, giving them a really high quality simulation as well, and allowing them to bridge the gap and see where they want to go. So there's a lot in this aircraft for a lot of different virtual aviators, and I think that is possibly part of its appeal and part of the great work that they're doing here. Now, in cons, as I said, not a lot that I can really find wrong with it. The main issue I had was with just the cruise part of the flight model. That's really it. That potentially could also be me, but as I said, like I've done things pretty. Did a lot of test flying in this one. That's the only issue I sort of had, but otherwise. It's still fairly close. There's not a huge difference. There's not a huge difference in it, but it was just I did notice probably about a 10 knot variance on what I was expecting in the cruise. But otherwise, really beautifully well modelled. The flight dynamics is otherwise then the ground handling, especially on the takeoff and handling, and the docile characteristics of such a long-lived and successful aircraft like this are really, really well modelled. So there you go. The only other con that I do have is the way the pricing structure is done. I think that I respect the price point for it because, as I said, there's a lot of detail and effort has gone into this model. I just sort of look at the way they've sort of divvied up the FSX and prepared sort of divvy up for that. It's not my favourite thing of the way they did that, but anyway, there you go. Alrighty, folks. Well, that, as I said, but overall, look, I can't complain. I think it's a really great quality add-on version of this aircraft. Great model quality, great model of this aircraft, and a great work and a great something in there for all manner of virtual aviators. So I would highly recommend that you consider picking this one up. Alright, folks, well, I want to round out the review by saying thank you very much to the wonderful guys over at Just Flight for providing me with a review copy of this aircraft today. And don't forget, as always, folks, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter. Just search NovaWing24. Alright, folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.